what's up, everybody? Welcome to a Wednesday edition of The Sweat, 55 minutes of DFS and sports betting goodness, hosted by yours truly. I'm Emerson Lotzia. That's my voice. Jessie, would you like to say something so people know your
I'm Jessie
voice?
Coffield, and what you're looking at is Ash Barty, who she kind of like rocked the sports world last night. She announced her retirement at the tender age of 25.
Yeah, you know, I know tennis players for the most part retire around like this neck of the woods, like this age.
No, they don't.
Yeah,
25?
they do. No, I think on average around like 27 is the age they retire. The reason this is a story is because she's number one in the world and she's like just getting started. Has like a career path that people were anticipating was going to look a lot like the Williams sisters right here. And she's like, I'm physically spent. Yeah. And I'm like, you're 25. What are you talking about?
She also, this is like the second time she's retired. She did retire. Yeah, she retired when she was super young, before her career really started, saying she was burned out and everything.
She was like 12.
And I know, she was like, it's too much.
I'm burnt out. And I get it. This is a sport you start really early.
Really young.
And I liked how she retired the first time because she said, I want to kind of be a normal teenager, for sure.
But it's not normal. She retired from professional tennis, and then she played professional cricket in Australia.
Okay,
she was like, I just want to be normal. A professional cricket player was her version of normal. Then she came back, and like you said, it's really shocking because she's just at the top of her game. She's won 25 of her past 26 matches and 3 of her past 4 events.
And she also has close to $25 million in prize money.
Yeah, what would you do? Okay, so she's 25.
Why
she's
haven't we retired?
She's walking away with $25 million. Like,
Good for her. I'm just anticipating her coming back here in about like a year or two where like, you know, maybe the bank account starts to get a little small. And she's like, wow, things are expensive here in Australia.
Yeah, or she's just like inflation. Or she's like Tom Brady and she spends a little bit of time at home with her fiance and she's like, never mind, I do have the drive to be a professional tennis player.
Yeah. Anywho, good for her.
Yeah.
Good for you. Enjoy it and Venmo us.
Yeah, definitely. We'll put our Venmo handles up later. But coming up on today's show, we got an NL Central preview, Sweet 16 talk, and the latest NFL news and notes. So we're going to get to all of that. Why don't we just bring in our guests?
You want to start? Let's start with basketball. Let's start with the NBA panel. DraftKings contributor Jeff Pratt, RotoWire's Nick Whalen. Good morning, guys. Thank you for not retiring and being here with us today.
Yeah, because we have a large 11-game NBA slate coming our way this evening. We're going to break it down, get your favorite DFS plays at the following positions.
Okay, so let's start here with the big beefy dudes in the middle. Jeff, who are you going to build around at center?
I said to pay all the way up for LeBron James on Monday, and I'm sticking with that strategy again today. He scored 61-plus DK fantasy points in 3 straight games, including a huge 76.75 fantasy point performance in his last contest against Cleveland. Everything goes through James for the Lakers. He's seen a usage rate of 36% or higher in back-to-back games and is 4th in the NBA with 37.1 minutes per game. That's absolutely insane for a 37-year-old, especially considering the fact that LA ranks 6th in pace on the year, but it just demonstrates how much he wants to win. As the Lakers fight for a play-in spot, he should carry them once again tonight.
All right, Nick, where you going?
No problem at all paying up for LeBron at 11-6, who is, of course, center eligible. He's seemingly playing every position for the Lakers these days. His results are pretty much independent of what's going on with the Lakers. You know, they could win by 20, they could lose by 20. It doesn't really matter. LeBron is still going to play 42 minutes. He's still going to find a way to score like 36 points and have a bunch of rebounds and a bunch of assists. So, you know, he's weirdly blowout proof at this point, where he's just going to play through a blowout if that's the scenario. But on the other side of that matchup, I think it's a Joel Embiid night for me. You're saving $600. You're getting him at 11,000. He's coming off of a rest night, so he should be as fresh as we've really seen him in a while. Hasn't played since Sunday. I think you're getting a decent price given the circumstances and given the matchup for Joel Embiid tonight. It also should be acknowledged that Christian Wood has 70 and 63 DraftKings points in 2 of his last 3 games. So that's something to monitor for that matchup tonight. And the other guy that really jumped out to me price-wise is Bam Adebayo. I know he's coming in on a back-to-back, but $7,900 for Bam Adebayo, a guy who was priced $700-800 more than that just a few games ago. To me, that seems like a pretty major bargain.
Did you hear the other day, like LeBron James, who's leading the league in scoring at 30 points per game right now, the Lakers are 9th in the Western Conference, and he says, I'm having the time of my life.
Yeah, like what?
I mean, good for you, man.
Big team guy.
I mean, yeah, I guess he loves
like,
his stats.
what?
I mean, they're gonna have to fight and fight and fight. Probably win a couple playing games if they even want to see some extended postseason action. Also, maybe Anthony Davis will eventually come back, but I don't know. Just wanted to kind of bring that up.
Yeah.
You know?
Kind of an awkward thing to say to
Yeah,
the media.
absolutely.
Maybe keep that one to yourself. All right, Nick, who's a forward worth building your lineup around?
Oh, man. Well, Kevin Durant obviously jumps out. He's at $11,000 at Memphis tonight. He's going to be the 1 or 1A, as always, when Kyrie Irving is back in the lineup for the Nets tonight. But, I mean, Durant has been essentially bulletproof whenever he's in the lineup. So we have to acknowledge that. I think I'm actually a little higher on Jason Tatum, who, he's $900 cheaper at $10,100. Totally fine with paying that price. The Celtics have been rolling. As I know you guys know, they are 22-4 straight up in their last 26 games. Over his last 10, Jason Tatum is averaging 34.4 points, 45.5% from three on 10 attempts per game. And really, this hot streak extends all the way back to January. He's been one of the 5 or 6 best players in the league during that span. And, you see the Utah Jazz and you think, oh, that's a stay away for DFS. And yeah, they're still a good defense, but they're not an elite defense on the level that they have been the last few years. So I think maybe that matchup will scare some people off and lower the rostership for Jason Tatum tonight.
All right, Jeff, what do you think when you're looking at forwards?
I really like Wendell Carter Jr. at 8,400. The Magic big man has taken a notable step forward this season in Orlando, averaging a career-high 14.9 points and 10.5 rebounds per game. Wendell has played a huge role in Orlando's offense lately, seeing a usage rate of 22% or higher in 5 straight contests, while also scoring a season-high 59 DK fantasy points 2 games ago against the Thunder. He wasn't amazing last night against the Warriors, but he's got a much easier matchup tonight against OKC once again, as they rank 23rd in fantasy points allowed to big men. He is currently questionable with left wrist and ankle sprains, so he's really banged up, but I like his odds of bouncing back if he suits up tonight.
All right, Jeff, on this 11-game slate, tell me which guard has building block potential.
Yeah, I'm looking at a couple of mid-tier wings tonight, starting with Desmond Bain. The Grizzlies sharpshooter has scored 41-plus DK fantasy points in 2 of his last 3 games. The Nets rank 22nd in fantasy points allowed to shooting guards, and Bain has played 31-plus minutes in 3 of his last 4 contests. You can save up here with Bain at 6.9K and pay up at another position. And another one of those mid-tier guards I like is Tyrese Maxey at 6.8K. Maxey's coming off a huge 42.25 fantasy point performance against the Heat, in which he racked up 28 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. James Harden and Joel Embiid didn't play in that contest, and they'll be back for this one, but that's not keeping Maxey off my roster. You guys know the deal with the Lakers. I pick on them almost every time I'm on. LA ranks dead last in the league in DK fantasy points allowed to guards and 24th in defensive rating over their last 15 games. Maxey should have no problem staying hot in this one.
Okay, Nick, how expensive you going here for a guard?
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem saving a little money, going with someone like Maxey. I think that's a good call. But if you do want to pay up, I mean, Trae Young, it's coming off a 40-plus point performance last night. He had back-to-back 40-point games last week in back-to-back games, no rest between. So he's more than proven that he's capable of piling up those kind of performances. He gets a good matchup tonight against the Detroit Pistons. I do wish Gary was there to back me up on DeJounte Murray at 10,300. He has, I think, the best individual matchup on the board at Portland tonight are the Spurs. And Portland, yikes. I mean, it's bad. They're the new face of tanking in the NBA post All-Star break. They're the worst defense in the league. They are finding excuses for guys like Anthony Simons, Yusuf Nurkic to sit. Even Josh Hart is getting rest days at this point. So you do worry about maybe some blowout potential in that game, but obviously, if that's the case, DeJounte Murray will be a big reason why. So I do like him at 10-3 at Portland tonight. And then Devin Booker at 9,300 seems like kind of a steal to me. I know there's some rumors that Chris Paul could potentially be back for this game. That's not going to happen. Maybe he plays tomorrow. Maybe he plays. I think their next game is Sunday. But we're going to get at least one more game of Devin Booker as the primary scorer and primary distributor for this team. And he's been amazing in that role. So I think 9,300 still a pretty good price for a guy who's upped his assist percentage considerably since Chris Paul went down.
All right, so with a larger slate, we have 11 games. Can you maybe think about building around some value? Hawks, Warriors, Magic, Knicks, all playing for the second night in a row. So, like, fatigue, resting people. Are there some attractive spots here where other guys might be stepping up, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, one situation I'm looking at right away is the Fox Sabonis situation in Sacramento with both of those guys out. Sabonis for sure, Fox we believe will be out as well. I mean, that opens up a wealth of potential at multiple positions. So guys like Trey Lyles, who's at 5,500, Davion Mitchell at 5,200. He played 46 minutes in their last game on Sunday without De'Aaron Fox. Dante DiVincenzo, who it feels like we haven't heard from at all since he left Milwaukee. He's going to see increased minutes tonight. He's at $5,000. And then for another big man, Damian Jones at 3,700, who has had some big performances when the minutes have been there this season. He's a guy who is a fairly efficient scorer, can rebound, can block shots. So really any of those guys to me are going to be viable. You mentioned that Orlando game. Markelle Fultz will be sitting on the second half of a back-to-back. If you really want to do some sort of dart throw or you need to save some cash, I think RJ Hampton at 4,100 has a decent amount of upside. And then the other guy that I'll point out, not quite as much of a value as these others, is Emmanuel Quickley, who has been really, really good over the last 10 or 15 games. He's finally shooting the ball efficiently. He's a guy who usually hovers around 40%, and he's been closer to 50% over his last 10 games. So especially if Julius Randle sits again on the back-to-back, I do like Emmanuel Quickley at 5,600.
All right, Jeff, where are you looking for some value?
I'm looking at the other side of that Kings-Pacers game. I like Goga Bitadze at 5K. Goga's coming off a lackluster performance against Portland, but prior to that, he had scored 28-plus fantasy points in 4 straight games, including a strong 47.75-point outing against Houston. The former first-round pick is only averaging 12.9 minutes per game, but he's played 20-plus in 4 of his last 5 contests. Tonight, he gets Sacramento, who ranked 29th in DK fantasy points allowed to centers, and will be without Domantas Sabonis, as Nick was talking about. That sounds like a recipe for another strong game for Goga to me. I also like Dwight Powell at 4.8K. Powell's coming off a huge 41-point fantasy performance against the Timberwolves, in which he saw a usage rate of 19.1%. The Mavs' big man is facing off against Houston tonight, and the Rockets rank dead last in DK fantasy points allowed to centers. Houston ranks second in the NBA in pace, which only means more opportunities for Powell.
Hey, dudes, before you guys take off, let's go to the DK Sportsbook real quick. Jeff, where do you see the most value on the NBA board tonight?
It's time to show the Boston Celtics some love, like Nick was doing earlier. Since January 29th, the Celtics are 20-3, and they're not just beating teams, they're beating great teams convincingly. Over that stretch, they beat the Nuggets by 20, the Warriors by 22, Grizzlies by 13. I could go on, but you get the idea. The spread for Boston sits at minus 4.5 at home versus Utah, and the way they're playing, they should cover that easily. No disrespect to the Jazz. They're a great team, but no one in the league is as hot as the Celtics right now. Looking at some player props, Jason Tatum over 29.5 points immediately stands out. He scored 30 or more in 8 of his last 10 games, and he's doing it efficiently as of late, shooting at least 55% from the field in each of his last 3 contests. I also like Marcus Smart over 5.5 assists, which is plus money on DraftKings Sportsbook right now. Smart's averaging 5.7 assists per game, and he's racked up 7+ in 3 straight contests. Boston should continue to roll tonight.
All right, Nick, talk to me. DK Sportsbook.
Yeah, I like that call. I also like Charlotte as a 7.5-point favorite against the Knicks. And I think we may have seen the New York Knicks last gasp last night against Atlanta. I mean, if they had any hope whatsoever of chasing down the Hawks to get that 10 spot and the final play-in spot in the East, they absolutely had to win that game. And they came up short. And at this point, they really don't have a whole lot to play for. So, maybe we see some guys rest on the back-to-back. Maybe we just see, Thibs finally pull back on some minutes. But it feels like their season, a lot of air went out of it last night. So I'm not expecting the most spirited effort from the New York Knicks against Charlotte. I also like the Heat, -7 against Golden State. This game, of course, in Miami. I misspoke earlier. The Heat are not on a back-to-back, but they are coming off of that terrible loss on Monday night against the Embiid and Hardenless Philadelphia 76ers. Golden State, of course, lost its last 2, only scored 90 points at Orlando last night. This is a team that still has a lot to sort out. Taking Curry out of the equation just messes things up so much for this offense. And, going up against the Miami Heat is not exactly a recipe for getting back on track.
All right, thanks, guys. Excellent work, as always. Love it.
Yep.
Love our basketball time. We're continuing our MLB divisional breakdowns, though, next. So stay tuned to find out where we're going.
We are closing in on Major League Baseball's opening day. That's April 7th. Today we are previewing the NL Central, starting with some key additions here, if you want to call them that, on your screen. Really big one here was the Cubs winning the Seiya Suzuki sweepstakes, hoping the hype there is real with the Japanese star. They also have outspoken pitcher Marcus Stroman, who joined them. I believe that was back in December. Now let's see which team our analysts believes will come out of this division. Top of the morning to DraftKings contributors, Matt Meiselman and Nick Fryer. Hello, guys.
All right, guys, good
Top of the
stuff. Let's start with the team that currently has the best odds on the DK Sportsbook to win the NL Central, and that is last year's division winner, the Milwaukee Brewers. So the Brew Crew won 95 games last year. They're minus 135 favorites to win the division again, but they did lose their leading home run and RBI man from last year with Avisail Garcia signing in Miami. So, are the Brewers still the class of the NL Central, despite that big loss?
Yeah, I still say so because the biggest thing for them is their pitching staff. We looked at them last season, and offense was always a bit of a question mark as much as Garcia did produce for them last season. They still have plenty of good hitters there, but my big thing is when I see Burns coming back, Woodruff coming back, Peralta, Hader. I mean, that is a trio at the top that's among the best in all of baseball, if not the best. And then Hader's an outstanding reliever too, of course, closing out games. I know right now that they are, well, the other thing is too, right? They won 95 games last season, 90 games for the Cardinals. But I know it's a 5-game gap, but the Brewers coasted, towards the end of the season. They were able to rest guys, use pitchers a little bit less than their starters, a little bit less than they normally might if it was a, really close run. So I like the Brewers to win the division. I think if you're looking for a little better value, though, take the over on them for their win total at 89.5.
All right, Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I actually might even be more optimistic about the Brewers than Nick is. So this is going to mean I have very boring things to say about the rest of the teams in this division, but I'm actually really excited about this Brewers team. And even though Avisail Garcia was their leader in two of the more important hitting stats, I actually don't think the offense got any worse. They picked up Andrew McCutchen and Hunter Renfroe, who I think are both probably marginal downgrades from Garcia, but they got two of those players, so the depth is better than it was last year. The rest of the lineup looks pretty similar. And then also, this was a team that dealt with some key injuries last year. The other reliever, in addition to Josh Hader, that really broke onto the scene last year and was unbelievable is Devin Williams, their setup man, who they didn't even have for the playoffs. So it looks like he's healthy this year. And the combination of all of that, I think, means that the Brewers are actually a better roster than they were in 2021. And I think the rest of the division, basically everybody got worse. So I think they should actually be even larger favorites than minus 135. Even minus 200, I think, isn't unreasonable for them.
All right, guys. So also the St. Louis Cardinals. So the Cardinals come in with plus 190 odds to win the division. Even when the Cardinals seem down and out, they always find a way to make their presence felt in the division, using a 17-game win streak last year to help them grab a wild card spot before losing to the Dodgers. Their manager didn't make it. They have a new one now. How do you like the Cards' chances to build on last year's late run and maybe be a little more consistent in 2022, Matt?
So as someone who had the Brewers to win the division last season also, the Cardinals' run scared me. And I don't really know what it is about this team. Like, if you look at their roster top to bottom, it's just not that good of a roster. And I don't really know how they managed to pull that off and get themselves in the hunt. Coming into this year, I think it looks like a very similar team. I think the reason I'm lower on them than I even was last year is that Jack Flaherty's shoulder seems to be a real problem. And for all that Adam Wainwright is, this is probably their best pitcher in Flaherty. So that's a really big deal for this team. I do think they're a pretty good offense, but this is not a pitching staff that I'm especially worried about. Their bullpen was problematic for a lot of last year too. So I think they'll be okay, but I'm not really worried about them overtaking the Brewers for the division this year.
Okay, Nick, do you think they have a chance here?
Yeah, they always have a chance. I mean, the Cardinals are one of the premier organizations in all of baseball. They just know how to win, and they don't always have to do it by spending money. They're like kind of what the Oakland Athletics think they can be, but never actually really become. But it is weird to see Oliver Marmol take over, and he's like 35 years old when Wainwright's 40 years old, I believe,
Yeah, he is.
coming into the season. So a little odd. But still, it doesn't matter who's in the manager seat. This team always is going to contend. I still like the Brewers more than them to win the division. But when I look at their win total at 84.5, minus 110, I like that one a lot too. Of course, two teams in that division winning 90-plus games last year. You still have Goldschmidt, Arenado, O'Neill, Carlson, Edman. And yes, the Flaherty and Reyes injuries are problematic. You added Steven Matz, which we'll see how that works out. You're not getting that luxury of no DH in the NL this year. But I still like them to at least get 85 wins this season.
Okay.
Okay, so the odds do drop quite a bit after the Brewers and Cardinals. Cubs are plus 1,000, but we do have an expanded playoff system this year, right? And the Cubs have slightly better odds at plus 500 to make the postseason. They did have one of the more intriguing offseason signings, you mentioned it, by bringing in Japanese star Seiya Suzuki. But Nick, is that enough to make the Cubs a legit playoff contender?
No, this is the team that has to prove it to me throughout the course of the season. I do think their win total is 75.5. This is the last one. I will say that for sure. You can take the over on this one. Again, just looking at what the division had last year, I think the Reds were in third place with like 83, 81 wins. I do think the Cubs will be the third best team in the division, adding Suzuki, adding Stroman. I know that Miley ended up getting waived by the Reds at the end of the season after a horrendous September, but he was actually pretty solid throughout the majority of the season. Just a few hiccups here and there until September, which things got pretty brutal. But when we look at the expanded playoffs right now, I mean, Braves, Phillies, Mets, Brewers, Cardinals, Giants, Dodgers, Padres are the teams that I have kind of messing around in this. The Cubs would be right on the outskirts of that, but not enough where I'm going to go and take them. I mean, plus 500, if you're a Cubs fan, maybe, but that's really about it. Also, Kyle Hendricks, big question mark. 3 good months last year and 3 horrendous months. So a lot of question marks with this team as much as they made some good additions.
All right, Matt, like enough to make you think the Cubs are a legit playoff contender with this signing, or do you have to wait and see?
Yeah, not really. I mean, I'd honestly even lean more towards the no side at minus 700 to not make the playoffs. And it's kind of what Nick was just alluding to, where I just don't buy this pitching staff. I think the offense could be good with Suzuki. I think there are some young hitters on this team that potentially could break out this year, like Frankie Schwindel and Patrick Wisdom, who looked really good at times last year, but I don't really buy Ian Happ and Nick Madrigal. The middle infield on this team, I think, is pretty far below average. And Andrelton Simmons, assuming he's the starter at shortstop, hasn't been the defensive standout that he was earlier in his career, and he's never been a good hitter. So I think there's a lot of holes in this roster. But yeah, having this veteran pitching staff with really no true ace, I think Marcus Stroman is solid. I think he's an above average starter, but he's not great. And then after him, there's a pretty sizable drop-off with guys who I think you'd be happy with as your number 5 starter in Hendricks and Miley and Drew Smiley also, maybe Alec Mills, but like even he, I'm not sure is a rotation starter. So the pitching staff is really the big problem here. The bullpen was really bad last year too. So even if the offense is exciting with Suzuki, I think that being down on this team makes sense just because of how bad the pitching is.
All right, as for the Reds, plus 1,200 odds to win the division. Their season win total only set at 74.5, so the division doesn't really seem likely right now, but they do have better odds than the Cubs to make the playoffs at plus 425. However, I mean, this is the thing. They got to convince their fan base here that a lot of these moves that they made recently are kind of just temporary because they traded away some of their best players and Suarez and Winker, and then they lost Nick Castellanos to free agency. So how exactly is this team going to make a run, Matt?
Yeah, maybe Nick can speak to this more than I can about the motivations as far as why the Reds are doing what they're doing. But to me, all I'm really seeing is just a team that gave away their two best hitters, and then also Suarez, who's one of their top 5 hitters also. But Castellanos and Winker are huge losses in the outfield, especially when you consider the guys that are now replacing them are not above average hitters. I think Senzel, Fraley, Naquin, Aquino, Akiyama, like all these guys are number 4 outfielders, probably. I mean, there's some youth there, so there's a chance, but I think overall this is not a very exciting roster. Jonathan India is definitely someone who is becoming a star pretty quickly, and I still like Joey Votto, but there are just the outfield really is a major problem, and that's, that was the focus of the moves this offseason. And then just like the Cubs, this is not a very deep pitching staff. I think there's some solid veterans here, but I'm not really happy about the Reds rotation either. So I don't really know why the Reds couldn't just continue with what they had last year. Maybe Nick knows more about that than I do, but overall, I don't really like this roster.
All right, Nick, can this team surprise and inspire fans to keep the faith?
No, they can't. I think by the end of this, look, we don't talk about last place teams, towards the end of the season, but I think if we were to have that conversation by the end of the year, we could be talking about the Reds being the last place team in the NL Central. I think that's very possible. Not necessarily because of how they're constituted now, because I do think if they stick with what they have, they'd be the 4th place team. But I wouldn't rule out that we see Castillo on the move, Molly on the move. I don't think Vladimir Gutierrez or Jonathan India are guys they'll get rid of because they're just younger. But Mike Minor, who knows? I know they just signed him, which obviously huge deal. But I just think right now they're trying to rebuild. Hunter Green, what's he going to do this year? I know he got smacked around last year in AAA. Nick Lodolo, he's going to make his major league debut more than likely this year. So you got some younger guys, and I think that's what they're kind of trying to move more towards is build around that young core that they have, the young talent that they have, I should say, and see if it's a core that they can rely on for the future. So yeah, this is a team, when we're talking about win totals, I take the under on this one, just one game below the Cubs on DraftKings Sportsbook, but they could easily be, fringe 70 win. We could be talking like 69, 68 for them this year if they make a lot of moves that end up making them worse this season.
All right, finally, we have the Pittsburgh Pirates. The projected win total for Pittsburgh is 65.5. That is the second lowest on the DK Sportsbook, ahead of only the Orioles, okay? A division title or a playoff berth are long shots, obviously. So are there any bets worth making on the Pirates, or at least maybe a good fantasy player to single out? Like, just give us something here, Nick.
Well, Brian Reynolds is a guy who you can roster day to day, of course, if the price is right. He proved that 2020 was kind of a fluke for him, obviously a weird year for everybody, but bounced back last year in a big way. I don't know how long he's going to be on the Pirates this season. I think there were rumors about him at the trade deadline last season, if I remember correctly. But if we're talking about looking at it from a betting standpoint, at 65.5, I think if you're a Pirates fan and you want a reason to care about the team this season outside of Brian Reynolds and maybe a few young guys, I think that taking the over on that is reasonable, but you got to have no faith in what the Reds are doing and got to assume that they're going to be making trades. So I think if you're everybody else, probably not the best way to go, but Pirates fans, I can understand you want to have something. You guys were good for a little while. I don't like seeing what they're doing right now, but yeah, Reynolds. And then if you're a Pirates fan, you can consider taking the over here.
All right, Matt, just give us something.
Well, I lean towards the over also, but I think this might be more of a wait and see situation for me. The number one reason why I feel that way is I'm not sure that O'Neal Cruz starts the season in the major leagues. And after Brian Reynolds, he might even be a more valuable player than Reynolds, even in his rookie year. So at minimum, he's in the top 2 assets on this team. And if he isn't playing for the first 6 weeks, you could see a very slow start where you just have probably Kevin Newman as the starting shortstop or Cole Tucker. It's a team that'll look very similar to last year. So hopefully if you like the Pirates to go over their win total, they hold on to Reynolds, as Nick was talking about. But yeah, it's really hard to make a case for this team being good. I think it's a little easier to make a case for them sneaking into 70 wins, let's say, and maybe finishing 3rd in the division. That's the optimism. That's the extent of my optimism here. I do think that there are some exciting young players here, but there were also a lot of spots on this roster that have almost no chance to be valuable for them. So there's no real shot at a division, but I do think the over on the win total makes some sense for them.
All right, guys, great work. Your job here is done. We will poke over to some March Madness bets after this quick break, plus some huge breaking news around the NFL we will get to with our NFL panel coming up later in the show. All right, March Madness has lived up to its name with one number 1 seed and a pair of number 2s falling across the first couple of rounds.
I had Kentucky to win it all.
You did? I think I had Auburn. I was trying to, go a little off the board there. Didn't quite work out. Sweet 16 tips off tomorrow. DK Nation's Colin Sherwin is here to help us with some futures bets on the DK Sportsbook. You survived Vegas, or are you still there?
I am somehow still here.
What?
Emerson.
Oh my God!
Leave, man. Leave.
No one is supposed to be in Vegas for that long.
No.
We are, I think it is day 14 today. We will be here until day 21 as well, which is just going to be a nightmare. Yeah, I am actually. I'm heading to the DK offices after this. I'm heading down to Las Vegas Boulevard. I'm going to go check them out.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been an adventure, that's for sure.
You've got to be at the point where you're like drinking water and eating salad.
You have
right?
no dignity
Like you've got to
left.
be at the point where you're like, I can't like go have beers in the sports book. Like
I had to have with Julie. Julian and I went out 2 nights in a row, and you could just tell that I was on day 13 and they were on like day 2.
Yeah.
Because there's no way I could keep up. It's just water. Yeah, a lot of water.
Yeah, a lot of
coming.
water.
Julian
Yeah,
permanently looks like he's on day 13. Like all the time.
wow.
It's true.
Okay.
I
glad
noticed
he's
he's
here.
not here this morning because he got home, and I still don't think he's ready to be
He's
on
not.
air.
No.
So
He
I think
keeps tweeting that he's
That's
like
it.
not well. He's like, I'll be back one day. Okay, all right, Colin. We're going to get into the individual matchups in tomorrow's show, but let's look at team futures right now. We're getting set for the madness to continue. Gonzaga's still a favorite at plus 220. They had to fight off a real challenge from Memphis. Now they get number 4 Arkansas. Are they still the team to beat?
Technically, yes, but I actually had going into this, I had Arkansas winning this game over Gonzaga. Arkansas was my team that I thought was going to make the run, and they're still in it. Now they're catching 9.5 here, and I think that line's too high. I'm definitely going to be on Arkansas here. I think this is a one-possession game. Gonzaga simply has not played well. Their first halves have been really, really bad. In fact, a good bet might be Arkansas first half. A Julian type of bet, actually. But I really like Arkansas here. I don't think there's much value on Gonzaga at plus 220 at all. There's definitely some better value down the board. But yes, is technically Gonzaga the best team? Sure. If they want to throw the switch and play their best basketball, I think they can. But with 4 games to play, I don't see them playing 4 good games in a row. They just haven't looked consistent enough. So I'm fading Gonzaga here.
All right, well, the next 2 teams on the board, Kansas, Kansas plus 425 to win the title. Arizona plus 550. Kansas actually has the better odds to make the Final Four at minus 190 here. Which side are you more confident in actually getting through there?
So I think Kansas is definitely the side that you should be favoring because they match up really well against Providence, and then they'll catch either a double-digit steed in Iowa State or Miami and the other side of that game. So they definitely have the easier draw. But I think plus 190 minus 190 isn't that great there. I think you can definitely do better with some other teams on the board. And Villanova just does better than anyone. If it's close and there's 5 minutes left, they beat you because nobody in the country shoots free throws better. And they just have the ability to close teams out if the game is close and late. So a Villanova-Arizona matchup would be a real contrast in styles, but I like Villanova with the value here because Kansas just draw-wise definitely has the easier draw, but there's a little bit more value on Villanova. So I would take Villanova in that matchup, but only because of the price.
Okay.
All right, Colin, well, the Coach K farewell tour continues as Duke faces Texas Tech in the Sweet 16. So one interesting bet on the DK Sportsbook is listed under tournament specials, okay, as team to advance further. So there are matchups of 2 teams. You can bet on which one will go further in the tournament, right? Okay, so for that special, Duke is matched up with Villanova, who gets number 11 Michigan next. So which one of those 2 teams will go deeper in the tourney, do you think?
Yeah, I like Villanova to go deeper here, but Duke getting plus 160, this is just a stay away from me. I don't see how Duke gets past either Gonzaga or Arkansas, but at that price, you might be tempted to think, they might be able to slide in there. I just think this is kind of a stay away bet. But for me, Villanova just has a path where the way that they play just lets them determine so much about that matchup, no matter who it's going to be. They can play Gonzaga or they can play Iowa State, and they're going to have that same kind of feel where The game's sort of going to be in the 50s and 60s, and it's going to be close and late. And then Colin Gillespie's going to be driving in the lane and making good decisions. So I would this is a stay away from me. But Villanova is just a team that anybody on any given night does not want to play. They're the ultimate just sort of, we're going to grind you down and do what we do. And I think they have kids on that team that are on Social Security. There's like, there are 17th year seniors on there. There are kids with doctorate degrees. They just have so much experience, especially so much experience in this tournament. It's amazing to remember their starting point guard played like 12 minutes in the national championship game 5 years ago. So Villanova is just a team that I just want to stay away from because no matter even if they're playing against a team with more talent, they're going to be able to grind them down.
There is nothing wrong with taking the scenic route.
Yeah, Emerson. It took Emerson 5 years to graduate from college.
Listen.
Oh, we went to the University of Can't Finish, the University of Stay Forever, both of us. So, yeah, Emerson, I completely understand. I took even longer than you, my friend.
Yeah, dude. Florida education, baby. That's
I guess
why
so
we
crazy.
are.
I graduated in 4 years.
Oh, my God. Speaking of Florida, hey, the Miami Hurricanes, you could have paid too much money to go to that school. But anyhow, they have never made the Final Four. They have plus 500 odds to get there this year. I mean, Colin, they seem to have come of age really in the last 6 weeks. Took down Duke, North Carolina, and Auburn over a 14-day period here. Like, do these odds entice you to take the Canes to win at least 2 more games?
Oh, yeah. Look, this is a great price on a team. Look, I think they're going to blow Iowa State out. I think that is just a matchup that really favors them. What Miami doesn't do real well is shoot threes. What they do well is everything else. And that leads to consistency and being able to translate. So I really like Miami in that matchup. And then they're going to get Kansas and Providence. And you know what? At that price, at plus 500, they're going to beat Kansas, I think, more than 1 in 5 times. This is just a team that grinds you away, plays really, really good. Cameron McGusty is just like one of the underrated players in college basketball right now. They're playing their best ball right now. It's so funny to look back. Like, I watched the team play against Dayton earlier this year, and I thought, oh, well, Miami's terrible, and they're going to fire Jim Larrañaga. And now they're the hottest team in college basketball. This is just how they've gotten better and better and better as the season has gone on. I really like Miami at that price. This is a wide open tournament. So I really like the dogs.
Yep.
Give me the dog, give me the value, and let's hope one of them hits.
I mean, this has been one of the most like unpredictable college basketball seasons I can remember in a while.
Yeah, everyone's like, oh, bracket buster, but like
Yeah.
actually.
But like the tournament's emulating really the madness that we saw throughout the regular season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. It's good stuff.
Sure.
Speaking of madness, Colin, God bless you for still being in Vegas, and it sounds like you got another week at least.
1 week to go, man. T's and P's, brother. T's and P's.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers. Drink that water. We are going to continue with the show here on The Sweat. We're talking NHL next.
Okay.
We got a RotoWire duo here with us right now. Paul Bruno and AJ Scholes. They are here for NHL opening face-off. Okay. Getting your favorite DFS plays on tonight's rather small, 4-game slate.
All right. Favorite DFS play at center, AJ?
Guys, Peter Mrazek is going to start for the Leafs tonight. Do I need to say anything else?
No.
This is a perfect time to utilize a handful of Devils in this matchup. Admittedly, I wouldn't touch the goalies on either side. The Leafs can certainly still win this in a shootout, but to that end, I'm going to go with Jack Hughes for 6,800. Pretty pretty decent price tag, but when you compare it to Matthews all the way up at the top, it's a huge savings. In his last 15 contests, Hughes has 8 multi-point games for a total of 9 goals and 13 helpers. Like, he's putting up a ton of points. The Devils' offense is actually pretty good. And again, they're facing just a disaster of a netminder in Peter Mrazek right now.
Ooh, Paul, how you feeling, man?
Shots fired.
Yeah.
I'm feeling good. You know, the last time these two teams met in Jersey a few weeks ago, it was 7-1 for Toronto.
No.
And the Leafs don't even need a goalie tonight. They're going to slaughter this team again at home. Matthews is $9,200 tonight, averaging 23.6 DraftKings points per game in his last 10 starts. Yes, please, I say. You can make a similar case for Crosby. I'm surprised AJ didn't go there. That club travels to Buffalo, and he costs $800 less. Fade McKinnon, I say, and JT Miller as well. They go head-to-head. Go a little cheaper and land on Malkin. How about that? Some Penguins love for my partner, who costs $6,200 versus Buffalo as my best bet in the 5,000 plus range. If you want to save some money, go to Trevor Zegras for only $3,700 as Chicago is the opponent. He's got 7 points and 29 shots on goal in his last 10 starts. Let's go.
All right, Paul, take us over to the wing. What's your favorite DFS play there?
Mitch Marner leads all point getters in the entire league over the last 6 weeks, and he's only $7,500 against that awful Devils club. They're playing on the second of back-to-backs too. Let's note that. Jake Gunsell and Brian Rust are certainly reasonable options. As the Penguins go to Buffalo, they should win that in a landslide. They're $7,300 and $6,600 respectively. Instead of all those guys, you can go cheaper in the 5,000 plus range and land on a guy like Alex DeBrincat. He costs $5,900 in a visit to Anaheim after posting 5 goals and 11 points in his last 10 starts while pouring 38 shots on goal. That's good enough for an average of 14.8 DraftKings points per game. If you want to save some money, go to Michael Bunting of the Leafs. He's playing with the M&M boys. $4,100 the price tag there. He's on a long hot streak alongside those two on the Toronto's big line.
All right, AJ, favorite DFS play at wing, please.
Well, first, let's dispel Paul's suggestion. 7-1. Jack Campbell played that game. And if Jack Campbell was playing this game, I probably wouldn't use the Devils either. But it's Peter Mrazek. Now, that doesn't mean that the Leafs can't win 7-6. So to that end, I don't dislike either of Paul's recommendations about the forwards for Toronto. For me, I will go to the Penguins in this one, and I'm going to use Jake Gunsell, 7,300. In part because I didn't pay up for Matthews. Jake and Bake has racked up 6 goals, 5 helpers in his last 10 contests. He's also averaging 3.3 shots on goal over that stretch. The Sabres penalty kill has been subpar at best in the month of March at just 76.2%. So I think getting some shares of the Penguins power play makes a lot of sense here. Again, for a value option, I'm going to go back to New Jersey. Jasper Bratt, 5,100. He actually leads the team in points after their last 10 games with 12 points. Expect this one to hit the over absolutely, and you will not find me fading the Devils or any team for that matter when Peter Mrazek is in goal.
Okay, AJ, favorite DFS play on the blue line. I feel like this is a position you don't typically pay up in.
You're absolutely right, Emerson. I don't. I was looking maybe at Chris Letang to get another share of that Penguins power play. But you just can't deny what Cale Makar is doing right now. And he's actually $200 cheaper. 7 multi-point games in their last 13 contests, includes 5 power play points. He's got 43 shots on goal over that stretch. Like, Makar is just way too good right now to avoid using him, especially when you compare him to Letang, who's actually bogged down in a bit of an over 10 game goal drought. Hasn't had a point in his last 3. So if you're going to pay up, I like Makar tonight. He's just too good to avoid.
All right, what do you want to do back on the blue line, Paul?
You know what? I agree with AJ's call among the big boys. Makar is the guy, but I really don't think I'll be able to fit him in because I got too many other guys I don't want to pay up for at forward. So I fade all.
Too many Leafs, Paul. You be clear about what you're saying. It's not too many guys you want to pay up for. Too many Leafs you're paying up for.
Yeah. Well, they're going to go big tonight. I fade all of the $5,000 plus guys on the blue line, though, and I look instead for Makar's teammate, Devin Taves, I continue to bang the drum for this guy. He's almost at a point per game, and yet somehow it's still only priced at $4,700. I think he's the guy I will try to squeeze in from the Colorado club. I also like Cam Fowler in Anaheim for $3,500. He's a clearer path to high leverage minutes in Anaheim now that Hampus Lindholm's been dealt to Boston. He has 8 points and 14 block shots in his last 10 games and faces a Chicago club that traded away their number one goalie. And this team is going to be feeling down after waving the white flag at the trade deadline.
All right, fellas, let's wrap things up with your favorite NHL bet on the DK Sportsbook tonight. Paul, where are you going?
I'm going to beat AJ to this one. I take Pittsburgh minus 1.5 on the puck line to win for the 120 payout. And Anaheim as well, same bet to win plus 180 payout. I found an interesting one on the daily specials I want to spend a moment on, and that's the matchup with the most goals. And I like Chicago and Anaheim for $300. The Ducks' defense and goaltending is a mess right now, and the Hawks lost their number one guy in net, and they're going to be going out to fire some pucks tonight. I think it's going to be easily the highest scoring game of the night, plus 300 payout.
AJ, was that where you were going?
The Penguin game, no, actually, although I'll take that bet. And Paul's wrong on the highest scoring game. It's going to be Devils and Maple Leafs. That'll get you plus 200 on that daily special that he mentioned. But for me, the bet I'm going to take, honestly, with Mrazek in goal, I'll take the Devils at plus 250 on the money line. Like, that's such good value for a situation that's realistically possible. One bounce the other way. Maybe this goes 7-6 in favor of the Devils here. And to that end, if you're a little more risk adverse than I am, you could consider just taking the Devils plus a goal and a half on the puck line for a solid plus 110. They don't even have to win the game. Just keep it within one here. And then I'll look at some player props here, and I will go to the Penguins here. And I would consider just taking all of Gunsell, Rust, Malkin, and Crosby to score a goal. They come in at 105, 120, 150, and 165 respectively. You'd have gotten 3 of those 4 last night, and really you just need 2 to get your money back and cover your bet here.
All right, hockey dudes, that's it. That's all the time we have to talk hockey with you hockey dudes. So after this quick break, big news around the NFL.
We'll talk NFL with NFL dudes.
Yes, that's true. Could Tyreek Hill be on the move here? And where possibly will he be on the move too? Right after this.
Podcast is available today. They're going to be joined by Matt Ryan as he talks about his big trade to the Colts, his expectations for the 2022 season. We're going to have some audio from that interview on tomorrow's show as well, so make sure you check that out. You can pick up the pod on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify, or wherever you get your pods. But that's an awesome one, so make sure that you tune in.
Okay, so now let's go ahead and transition to our NFL segment. Look at this. Another blockbuster coming, question mark. Despite an offer from the Chiefs set with make superstar Tyreek Hill one of the highest paid receivers, this from Ian Rappaport, extension talks have stalled. Kansas City has now given Hill's agent permission to seek a trade, sources tell me, and Tommy P. Okay.
Oh,
we've seen a few other tweets in there. It looks like Adam Schefter has tweeted that it's likely his destination. Biggest trade targets right now, teams interested in trading for him, the Dolphins and the Jets. Let's bring in DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich and Pierce Dietrich to kind of get their reaction to all of this. Jeffrey, your immediate reaction, your immediate takeaway from this news is what?
I mean, look, if Tyreek Hill this all just comes down to what Tyreek Hill wants to do. If he's just about getting the contract, sure. The Jets and Dolphins, I guess, have some space. I think the Dolphins especially may have a little bit of space left in terms of being able to fit them in. But, I mean, I'm a little bit shocked here. I mean, this is just like, where else are you going to get to play with this high end of quarterback? So my reaction is just like, you can pretty much tear down everything about Tyreek Hill next year if he goes to one of these teams that we're talking about. I think that there will become other teams interested in this. I think the Bears are someone I would just throw out, and maybe the Eagles potentially, which would be better for fantasy purposes. But man, you really have to dial back the expectations for Tyreek Hill if he goes to one of these teams. I think Tyreek Hill is a very good player, a very unique wide receiver, but he is attached to the best quarterback in the game right now, and that would certainly change his fantasy value if he ended up going somewhere else.
Something to note really quick that I think is interesting. Drew Rosenhaus is the agent for Devontae Adams, and he's Tyreek Hill's agent.
Yeah.
So maybe like the Devontae Adams contract is
Hill's like, I want that.
I want that money.
I want that money for sure. And another report, Pierce, says the Chiefs want at least 2 first-round picks for Tyreek Hill.
Jesse is right. The key point here is Drew Rosenhaus is his agent. This is clickbait, and the normies are eating it up. He's not going anywhere. This was clearly a leak by Rosenhaus to speed up the negotiation process. He's not getting traded. It's just a leak to get leverage. That is all that this is. I mean, think about it. When did this news pop up? Oh, I don't know, on the slowest day where nothing is happening. They just happened to drop this one on the people. He's not going anywhere. Let's move on.
All right, but Jeff, if the Chiefs do deal him, what is the impact? How much does this impact their chances of winning the division? That has become a scary division with all of the free agency moves that have been made.
Yeah, look, I mean, I definitely think it dials back the Chiefs' chances a little bit. At the same time, we can't overvalue the wide receiver position. Byron Pringle, Mecole Hardman. The Chiefs have drafted for this scenario, this exact scenario.
Juju is there now.
What's that?
Juju's there now as well.
Juju Smith-Schuster, you're right. So they've prepared for this scenario, the doomsday scenario. I mean, it would definitely knock them down. There's no Tyreek Hill replacement. There's really no Tyreek Hill replacement in the league, but the Chiefs are still going to be the Chiefs because they have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid leading that team. So it definitely bring the Chargers and especially I think the Broncos more into play, but I wouldn't just write off the Chiefs necessarily. That team is, Tyreek Hill is like the third or fourth peg in terms of importance for that team.
I also like Pierce. Hill is entering the final season of his 3-year, $54 million contract with the Chiefs. Yep. So that cap hit is $21.9 million for the 2022 season. So I mean, is that you don't think there's anything to that about why they might be engaging in trade talks?
I don't think they're engaging in trade. Look at the way that it reads. It doesn't say he demands a trade or they want to trade him. It's as innocuous as you can imagine, right? He has the freedom to seek a trade on his own. They don't want to trade him. He doesn't want to leave. They're just trying to get back to the table to negotiate again. If you read the specific details, it's that the talks have stalled. They simply just want to get back to negotiating and finding something that works for both sides.
I mean, he is I can say this with 100%, sir. He's getting traded after Pierce is given this day. He's 100%, he's gone.
1,000%.
I mean, I'm already penciling in Jarvis Landry or Julio Jones as the free agent replacement. I've already got this set. He's getting traded. Pierce is so adamant he's not. He's gone. He's out of there.
Okay, so we have a minute left in the show real quick. Since you're so confident now, and I am as well, Jeff, and we'll talk more about this tonight on the slate at 5 o'clock. Jets, Dolphins, quickly, where would be, he's no longer going to really be on a contender, right? Where would the best place be for him between those two teams? Where would you prefer to see him?
God. I don't know. I guess the Jets, just because Zach Wilson can actually throw the ball further than 30 yards. It's really just pick your poison. Neither place would be a good spot. I'll say the Jets just because at least he's got a live arm quarterback who can do some fancy things and probably has a better shot at hitting him on some of those deep balls.
Okay. Quickly, Pierce, Jets or Dolphins?
Dolphins, they've improved the offensive line.
Okay. Love it.
Pierce doesn't believe
No. But just hypothetically
I
speaking,
know.
that's the beauty of
All
the
right,
off season.
good stuff. We'll
Thank
talk
you.
about some of this other NFL stuff throughout the week. We just wanted to only talk about the Tyreek Hill possibility because obviously
I got that impression.
Yeah,
Did you get
absolutely.
that
Because we're out of
impression?
time. It's the only thing we talked about.
We can't be managed. We don't have a manager.
All right, Jeff, I'll see you tonight, 5 o'clock for the slate. Like Reed's doing stuff at the PGA Tour, so it's just you and I, two dudes who can talk a dog off a meat wagon. So we'll do that, and at high noon.